We've got a hot one for you tonight across the UK on DAB digital radio and on television and online worldwide at talkradio.co.uk. This is The Unexplained, the most ear-opening show on the air anywhere. From Keighley to Key Largo, from Kingston to Kinshasa, from Kimbolton to Kimberley, and from Kilkenny to Killeen in Texas. This show's the total mix of hard science, weird science, and pure paranormality every week. We do weird, we do science, we do it all here, and we've been doing it for 7.5 years on TV and 17.5 years on my podcast at theunexplained.tv. Big show tonight. Hour one includes investigative journalist Ross Coulthart on UAPs, revelations, and David Grusch. We talked about it last week. The man who did the interview that has made so many headlines worldwide is here with us in minutes. Paola Harris will be on the Vatican and UFOs. A top scientist on living to 150. Chris Smith, the naked scientist, will be here talking about another new scientific development that I think you're going to be, maybe disturbed by. Certainly you'll want to do more research about it. This is the creation of artificial human embryos. We'll talk about that with him. Music we're going to talk about, and AI. Paul McCartney says he's going to make a Beatles final song using AI. We're going to have former Radio 1 breakfast DJ and my old mate Mike Reid on about that. And sound a bit like Smashy and Nicey, though. My old mate Mike Reid is going to be on tonight. Plus, if we can fit all of this in, a Midlands haunting with the great Liz Cormel. Hour 2. Legendary author Whitley Strieber about his new book, Them. See what I mean about it being a big show tonight? You can connect with us anytime on 0344 499 1000 on the phone, at Talk TV on the Twitter, but actually I can't see those, so I wouldn't bother doing that because I can't see them in the studio. Or just a little word to the wise here. Or you can text TALK and then a space and your message to 87222. So get set for resourcefully rapid-fire rollercoaster randomized reality radio and TV for a Sunday night. The Unexplained. We are June the 18th, 2023.
The Unexplained with Howard Hughes.
Thank God that's out the way now. My thanks to my news contributors tonight, Robin, Steve, Jonathan, Kev, Paul and Lee. Shout out to Teresa. Hi from Brandon. And also me too, Teresa. I hope everything's okay with you. And David, I promise I will get the photograph to you during this week. I've just had one of them weeks this week. Now, there's a lot of UAP and, non-human intelligence, NHI type news around this week. Of course, just like last week, the story gathers pace the revelations of David Grusch. And the fallout from that, the whistleblower, of course, David Grusch, impeccable bona fides this man has, worked in security, the military at the highest level. Was he a 14-year veteran of Afghanistan? You know, this man has great credentials. In short, a man with great security and military credentials, former co-lead for UAP analysis at the National Geospace Intelligence Agency. He reveals the so-called truth that the US and other countries have exotic materials and crashed craft that have been withheld from members of Congress, the information that is, and the people of the world at this crucial time. It's all come out because he claimed he was being harassed and impeded in doing what he was doing and filed a law case to that effect, essentially. Investigative journalist Ross Coulthart's interview with Grusch has been viewed worldwide many times, probably millions of times by now. And I'm delighted to say that Ross Coulthart is with us here on The Unexplained. How are you, Ross?
G'day, Howard. How are you, mate?
I'm really good. It's always we do. Did you ever have to do these in your days, doing live stuff, Ross, the hot seat handover? We do that here at the studio. So
I do that a lot, my friend. I do that a lot. And in fact, I've been doing an awful lot of it in the last couple of weeks because of this story. A lot of skeptical mainstream media who still have their heads up their butts, reluctant to admit that this is a reality. I mean, it's funny, I just literally had a conversation with somebody here in Australia who told me that a speech I'm giving in Melbourne in a few months' time, they've declined to give publicity to me speaking about Dave Grusch because they've said that he's a conspiracy and, he's not a whistleblower. It's just a conspiracy. And people are missing so much about the significance of this story because Dave Grusch, the interview that he's done, one, as you've rightly said, his credibility is without any doubt at all. It's absolutely rock solid.
And you made a point before you did the interview with him, you had him checked out.
Absolutely. And more importantly, a lot of what Dave Grusch says I've been able to corroborate with my own sources privately. I mean, journalists like myself don't just put somebody like Dave Grusch on air without checking them out. And so I've been talking to people in the so-called legacy crash retrieval program now for quite a number of years. They assisted me in the writing of my book. And if anyone reads between the lines in my book, you can see that I've clearly had people feeding me information. And I've been very privileged because there are good people, believe it or not, there are good people in the US defense and intelligence community who do want this story told. They think it's time the world knew. Now, I'm not an activist, and I'm kind of uncomfortable being portrayed as an activist. I'm a journalist, and what I do is I confine myself to evidence. And as Leslie Kean, my co-colleagues, if you like, in the telling of this story, Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal revealed in their article, they've got corroborative sources who went on the record, including a Colonel, Carl Nell, who backs the claims of David Grusch. And what shocks me at the moment is I suppose I was ready for it, but it's the degree of intransigent mainstream media pushback where the flagship newspapers and TV networks of the United States, and indeed in your country and mine, are turning a blind eye to this story. They're completely ignoring it. And I can tell you, it's real. I'm absolutely in no doubt whatsoever that Mr. Grusch is who he says he is. And more importantly, a lot of what he says is backed by corroborative evidence.
Well, listen, my thought about all of this is that you have got the interview that all of us would die for. I guess I just need to ask you, before we talk about it specifically and where we're at with it right now, how did you get it? Did he contact you?
I reached out to people who work in the legacy program. And I suspect, I don't know for sure, I've never asked him this because I want to protect my sources as much as he wants to protect his. He and I were working the same patch. Essentially, there's a very narrow, small group of people who are working secretly for both private aerospace companies and the US government inside black world secret special access programs who are working on, I believe, retrieved non-human technology. And in the course of my work with them, they told me about a man called David Grusch, who was working at the time for the UAP task force, tasked by the Congress, the Pentagon, to investigate the phenomenon of UAPs to find out once and for all for the Pentagon whether or not there was any truth to the claim that there were these hidden programs that are being illegally and indeed criminally concealed from the US government. And he, as I have done, has confirmed that this is a reality. And so now we have this absurd situation. Basically, what happened was I heard about him. Various people then introduced him to me, and we then started speaking. That's how it works.
Mm. And you have a wide-ranging conversation with him. You ask him a lot of the questions that a lot of us would have loved to ask somebody like this because, you know, there's one chance to do it and he is the man to do it with. He clearly impressed you. You told him that people were looking at his eyes and they would make a judgment themselves, which no doubt they have done. But after this, the DOD, the Department of Defense in America, put out a statement, Sue Goff, the Pentagon spokesperson. And I don't know whether you thought in the same way that this was interesting for this reason. She said in the statement that what was needed and they hadn't got at the moment was verifiable information. There still was nothing verifiable about back engineering, crashed craft, etc. I thought the use of that word verifiable was very, very interesting because it depends on who's doing the verifying. You know, my standard of verification may not be yours, and their standard of verification, who knows what it is.
Howard, I would like to say a lot about the Pentagon's demeanour and its behaviour on this issue, but frankly, I think the Pentagon is involved in an active attempt to cover up and suppress this story. The simple fact is that if you listen to and read Sue Goff's statement, she confined her answer to AARO, which is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is the Pentagon office tasked to investigate UAPs. It's a very clever weasel words device that she used to try and constrain on behalf of whom she was answering. Her denial was not a denial on behalf of everybody in the Pentagon, some of whom are briefed into this program. It was a very specific denial on behalf of AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, the Pentagon's UAP investigation office. And the reason why she can do that is because what they've done is they've emasculated AARO. On the admission of the existing boss of AARO, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the people inside AARO who are doing the investigations have been neutered. They don't have what's called Title 50 access. And Title 50 access is what gives you the security classification you need to be able to access special access programs, particularly the waived, unacknowledged special access programs, the WUSAPs, that are almost certainly being used to conceal this incredible story. And so I think the Pentagon, whilst it was tasked by the Congress to properly investigate, and whilst there are good people in the Congress who are determined to get to the bottom of this story, sadly, there are people in the Pentagon who have essentially tasked the body to fail that's doing the investigation. And so we're in a really interesting situation right now where there's a massive pushback by the intelligence community and by their lickspittles in the mainstream media who are doing their level best to try and suppress this story. And I just don't think it's going to work because there's a momentum here. People now accept that Dave Grusch is a person of credibility, a person of high reputation. Multiple people have come out and vouched on his behalf for his not only his credibility, but the fact that he did actually have the contacts and the access that he says he had. So I just think we're going to have to wait and see. It may not happen as quickly as the people in the UAP research community want, but I think you're going to see a slow dribbling out of this story in the next few months. It's going to be a slow curtain raiser. And I think even though I'm pretty sure the Biden administration has no plan in place for how to deal with this, there is going to be momentum because other whistleblowers eventually will come forward. And more importantly, I don't think we've heard the last of David Grusch. I think there's a good chance he will soon be giving evidence before a Congressional Oversight Committee hearing. And more importantly, I think that the evidence is slowly starting to emerge. What's holding all this back is I think there are people in the Defense Department who honestly think that we're about to go to war with China and we're at serious risk of a confrontation with Russia. And they think that showing their hand, revealing what they have in their arsenal because of what they've been able to back engineer from retrieved technology is not a good idea. But I think that the public are ready to be told, at the very least, that there is indeed a non-human intelligence that's been engaging with this planet for a very, very long time.
As you rightly said, and we can agree that the media in many countries, including the one in which I reside, have not done a great job of publicising your interview, which aired on News Nation and got all of those views. So just for those who haven't seen the interview, we've got a very short clip of it here. Let's see it.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You asked him, Ross, to confirm what evidence he had, or at least give you something, give you a snippet, give you a tidbit. We'd all ask for that. Can we see a picture? Let's have some of this great stuff that you're telling us about. I love your story. It's great, and I have every reason to believe you. But, where's the evidence? And, of course, all he could say was that it was classified. That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah. In law, Howard, and what people ignore when they say that there's no evidence, that he hasn't provided credible evidence, this is a guy who used to hand carry the world's biggest secrets in a briefcase to the West Wing of the White House. He was involved in helping draft the presidential daily briefing. This is a guy from the highest levels of the US intelligence community. He's what you call a witness. In law, witnesses get cross-examined. They get deposed under oath and they give evidence. That's exactly what Mr. Grusch has done. The problem he has is that all of his evidence is classified. He goes to jail for a very long time if he reveals publicly the detail of what he knows. He desperately wants you, the public, to know what he knows, but he can't just blab it. But what he's done is the next best thing. He's gone to the Inspector General of the intelligence community and the Inspector General of the Defence Department, and he's given that evidence under oath in a SCIF, in a secure compartmented information facility, and he's basically given evidence that's then supported by other witnesses, people from within the legacy crash retrieval program. This is why this is such a nonsense argument, because the only reason why the Inspector General has referred David Grusch's allegations to the Congress as urgent and credible, that's the word used by the Inspector General of the intelligence community, is because he, the Inspector General, independently proved the veracity of what Mr. Grusch was claiming and was so concerned about it, he referred it to the Congress for investigation. What's happening now, though, is you have a situation where even the congressional committees that are determined to investigate this, such as Representative Comer and Representative Burchett's Oversight Committee, they don't have the security classification to be able to even hear a lot of the evidence that Mr. Grusch has in his head. And so you've
what's
got
going to happen about that? Because we had Tim Burchett on this show last week saying exactly that. Is anything going to happen about that?
Look, I like Tim a lot. I think he's a colourful character, and he's the sort of person you need to rattle a cage inside the Congress. But he doesn't have a security clearance. The people on the intelligence oversight committees, the HIPSI and the SSCI, the House Select Committee for Intelligence and the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence, they're the people that people need to pressure to actually start holding hearings. You need to hold the feet to the fire of people like the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Senator Warner. You need to talk to the people who are the members of the Gang of Eight, which is the very, very exclusive club of people inside the Congress who are given access to these secrets and given the security classifications to hear them. Now, I don't think what you're going to see is a mass unveiling of secrets about propulsion systems or weapon systems or things like that. I think what might happen if people apply enough pressure is these committees might be forced into an admission that, yes, there is a non-human intelligence engaging with this planet. I can understand why the US may want to keep certain things confidential, things such as the technology, how they've derived technology from these retrieved craft, weaponry, propulsion systems, energy systems. I can understand why any nation would want to keep that secret. But what you need to understand, Howard, is your government, the British government, is deeply involved in this cover-up. They have retrieved craft with the US government. They're intimately involved in essentially a foreign exploitation retrieval program, not just of foreign adversaries' technology, but of technology that is indeed not of this world. And I know it's breathtaking, and I know people will suffer what's called an ontological shock in terms of coming to terms with it. And that's why there's so much mass skepticism in the mainstream media. It just can't deal with it. But the simple fact is it's going to come out, and eventually the truth will emerge. And people are just going to have to be patient.
And in the meantime, the British government, which has been, as you will know, heavily involved with the machinations of one Boris Johnson, who they will vote upon tomorrow, and it will make news around the world. So they're not saying very much about this, if anything at all, at the moment. But you think, Ross, that eventually even our government is going to have to come out and say something about this?
You know, I find it hilarious at the moment. I was just in Britain a couple of weeks ago, and I just could not believe the degree of obsession in the mainstream media with just utter irrelevant nonsense. Okay, Boris had a party and got drunk with his staffers and lied about it. By all means, force him to resign. But why is this on the front page of newspapers?
Well, yeah, I mean, it can be there 1 or 2 days, but not every bloody day. But I mean, that is a whole other issue.
So boring.
You know, this could be.
But the point is that, as you're rightly about to point out, this is if David Grusch is telling the truth.
It's the greatest story ever told.
It's the biggest story ever.
And
it's
you've got
the
it.
hugest story ever. And the thing that amuses me is either he's lying, which is incredible because this is a man who's risking going to jail for the rest of his life. Because if he's lied, this is what he's said under oath to the Inspector General, and what he's also said under oath to select committees inside the Congress. So if he's lied, he's going to jail.
They're going to kill me here. I've just got one quick thing to ask at the end of all of this, and then we have to get commercials. And thank you so much for doing this on a Monday morning, Ross. You tackled him with the question of, do you believe that people have been murdered, silenced about this? And the reply that you got was extremely interesting. It was, he didn't exactly confirm it 100%, but it was extremely informative, wasn't it?
He expressed the strong suspicion, as I have as well from my own sources, that people have been not only harassed, threatened and intimidated, but killed to protect this secret. And that's how serious this is. We're talking about grave crimes. And no wonder the people responsible for this are trying to cover it up. Why are we surprised?
Where is David Grusch now? Is he in hiding?
No, he's not in hiding. He's determined to speak to the Congress, and he's determined to make a public statement about this when he's given the opportunity in the proper forum. At some stage in the next week or so, I will be revealing a longer version of his interview. We've recorded a total of about 7 or 8 hours of interview with him, and I'll be doing an edited, extended version of his interview, which I think will find a lot of attention.
Are you holding back some good stuff?
Oh, there's a lot that he said that hasn't been revealed yet, and a lot of it I'm doing because, frankly, I think people need to be prepared for it. I think there's an enormous amount that Mr. Grusch knows, and I know, it's really funny. One thing that I want to emphasise is it's 2 weeks now. 2 weeks. We've had all the carping debunkers and all the skeptics. Not one of them has laid a glove on the credibility of Mr. Grusch. And all he wants is the opportunity to have his allegations tested. What are they frightened of? He's called their bluff. If he's lying, expose him as a liar. If he's not lying, think about the implications of what he's saying.
Because we all have to make a plan. If this information is confirmed to the public in your country, the US, my country, things are going to change. Ross, many congratulations on what was an excellent interview and a wonderful piece of journalism, and thank you very much for talking with me. Ross Coulthart, this is The Unexplained.